Mark Baldberg, 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 Baldberg. Who's next? Well, I know what's next, and that's Flight Risk. Directed by known anti-Semitic son of a bitch Mel Gibson. Yeah, he's also a terrific actor. He's done some really good movies behind the director's chair, or really behind the camera. But I'm not going to forget the fact that he was an anti-Semitic piece of shit and really just decided to let that be known. Nevertheless, Mel Gibson, terrific goddamn actor, but goddamn it, Mel, you just couldn't pull your head out of your fucking ass. Anyway, speaking of heads up asses, let's talk about the writer of this particular movie. Jared Rosenberg. I'm sure he's a lovely man, but good God, this is his feature credit, and if this is what he's doing, yeah, Flight Risk. If you can't guess how I felt about Flight Risk, if you've seen the trailer, you see a plane, Mark Wahlberg in a bald wig, Topher Grace is there, and there's a U.S. Air Marshal, played by the incredibly sunny and incredibly talented Michelle Dockery, who was in Downtown Abbey. She is Mandolin. I'm just going to call her Mandolin. It's Madeline, actually, but I'm going to call her Mandolin because I just want to picture a mandolin actually behind, behind the controls of a plane, because I think it would have actually been less wooden than what we got here. So yeah, Mandolin is a U.S. Air Marshal. She's transporting a guy named Winston, Chill Winston, played by Topher Grace, who's going to testify against some evil crime lord, but a pilot, played by Mark Wahlberg, has other ideas. So yeah, most of it takes place in the air, in the confines of this plane, and I don't really get why this film wasn't put directly on streaming. Netflix, Hulu, Max, MGM Plus. Who knows that MGM actually has a streaming service? I'd be surprised. Amazon could have scooped it up. Because to be perfectly honest, this film is about as bare bones of a concept as you would get. And ends up having paper-thin characters, a rice paper-thin plot, and really no entertainment to speak of. Really nothing of value, no suspense, no twists, no turns. Everybody literally phones in their goddamn role. And look, I understand that when you have a bare bones project like this, as long as you don't overstay your welcome, that's fine. This thing is 83 to 85 minutes and feels like it is way longer. Topher Grace is trying to have fun with his role, but it doesn't fucking work. Mark Wahlberg. Read up on Mark Wahlberg and hate crime and actually see where, maybe he channeled some of his rage from his youth and possibly from, stuff he's tamped down. Look, everybody's got skeletons in their fucking closet, but you know who doesn't have a skeleton in their closet that includes racism? That would be a lot of people, because, yeah, nevertheless, Mel Gibson probably is going to blame somebody for the fact that this movie is getting critically thrashed, and it deserves to get critically thrashed. It's currently in the high 20s on Rotten Tomatoes, which I know isn't the barometer. I know that's not how it's said, but work with me, of how people feel as far as critics. And by the way, speaking of how do you feel, how would I feel, we have New Order, and they're going to treat you like they do. Who remembers Orgy doing a version of that? Who remembers the band Orgy? Blue Monday and Stitches. Far more interesting than anything that takes place in Flight Risk, which really just has characters making stupid decisions, saying pointless dialogue. There's a guy that's going to guide Mandolin in, a guy named Hassan, I believe. Hassan Chop. And, yeah, then you literally get a plot unfold via, cell phone, satellite phone, and stuff like that. A plot that really just somehow gets more convolutedly stupid despite getting more simplified. Like, everybody, nobody's really into, into this for the plot. But the fact that they keep trying to hammer the fact that, it's suspenseful, or, how would we know this about this character, or how would this character know this about this person? And again, when you have just a few people on camera, I mean, literally, the very beginning sees Topher Grace's character get captured, which is apparently over here. And Mandolin shows up along with two other cops, and then you don't see anybody else until the very end of the goddamn movie. Flight Risk, the only risk really is the fact that this thing should have been fucking grounded, because I think if this thing had gone into the goddamn air for real, it would have ended up like John Denver's plane. In fact, I kind of wish that, everybody involved in funding this kind of ended up like John Denver, because quite frankly, that's what you guys deserve. This movie was atrocious. Not even for entertainment purposes. This was really, really fucking bad. And it just ends up limping along. It limps along. It doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to get into spoilers, so that's just really all I have to say. It's in theaters. If you really want to check it out, you might find this entertaining. But here's the thing. I had no expectations going into this fucking movie. Zero. I thought the trailer looked absolutely shitty and was like, okay, Mark Wahlberg is a goddamn, pilot with a bald wig. Whatever. I mean, I guess that could be entertaining. No, that's somehow not as entertaining as you would have thought. Even seeing it in the trailer, like, okay, nope. None of this is entertaining. None of this is good. It's pretty much terrible. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Sadly, it'll probably end up making at least a decent amount of money. But yeah, U.S. Air Marshal Mandolin must basically save Winston after it's revealed that Daryl's not actually Daryl. He is somebody else. We don't know his name. That's not his name. That's not his name. And as after she ends up subduing him, after she ends up tying him up, now, why can't I find an English woman to tie me up like that? Basically, the idea is now, and by the way, Winston tried warning about all this, warning about these crazy, about the fact that that's not actually Daryl. And, oh yes, he also said, Daryl, if you let me go, I'll give you some money I skimmed off of the boss. This boss, apparently, that hired Daryl to take care of him. And then, Mandolin ends up subduing him, tasering him quite a bit to the point where he probably should have been out for a while. But it's fine. She ends up basically getting a hold of somebody, talks to a person named Van Sant. Not Gus Van Sant. Thankfully, that piece of shit's gone. I don't even actually think he's a piece of shit, but just after doing that Psycho remake, yeah, I don't ever want to see that man ever direct a movie again. How dare you? I'm going to retro review the 1998 Psycho because I hate myself. That being said, she's talking to her, but then there's this this stuff about, how in the world would all this be known, because once, Baldberg wakes up, he basically says, y'all need a pilot. He reveals some stuff that he knew. Like, he knew all this stuff about her, like the last prisoner that she had ended up dying because, she stepped outside while this person took a shower. But then somebody ended up bum rushing the apartment and or the hotel, and ended up setting it ablaze with a Molotov cocktail. Oh, by the way, she also had her shackled to the shower, so she could shower, but she couldn't get away. I guess the shower rod was on there like a goddamn vice. Nevertheless, it is revealed after basically Topher Grace says that he would pay off Mark Wahlberg with stuff that he skimmed. That kind of comes back into play when Mandolin basically says, hey, I need to know about, what you skimmed off of this person. Well, I skimmed this and this kind of stuff, and it went to a certain account in Massachusetts, I believe. I guess. And the FBI headquarters, basically, or U.S. Marshal headquarters, or whatever, all this stuff's getting leaked. It turns out it's actually coming from the top. This guy named Coolidge. Why is he doing this? I don't know. He got paid off by this Moretti guy. None of it matters, by the way, but all this is literally unfolding on a goddamn satellite phone. And I understand maybe not wanting to cut away to the goddamn, to like the headquarters or whatever. Maybe you couldn't afford it. Maybe they wanted to have it be dramatic. The thing is it just seems cheap. I mean, really, really fucking cheap. And basically it turns out that, Baldberg was very well informed, but also was taken down rather easily, because there is the one where he gets free. There's this knife that was used earlier that is under the pilot seat when they go up this mountain and they crash through the snow, but somehow they're okay. They lean up They lean back like they're Big Punisher or Fat Joe. Who was that? Big Punisher? Who the hell did lean back? That's something a 44-year-old white guy should ask on a YouTube channel. That being said, he ends up freeing himself. He ends up stabbing Winston a few times. But then, even though you would think that a U.S. Air Marshal would, panicked about, trying to land a plane, would be, maybe a little preoccupied, she somehow manages to eventually get a flare gun, shoot him with a flare, and then also basically beat him with a fire extinguisher. So, mind you, the realistic aspect of this movie that already was damaged is pretty much just getting totally beaten into the ground. Oh yes, and then it turns out that Coolidge is on this whole goddamn thing, not Gus Van Sant like we thought, and Gus Van Sant is dead. Not for real, unfortunately, but that being said, and for whatever reason, Mandolin is all upset. Oh, I accused her of being the mole, but it was you, and oh no, and this kind of stuff, and we don't see any of these characters. We don't know anything about them, and nothing of it matters, and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a movie. It can't hurt me. So nevertheless, basically, Mark Wahlberg is pretty beat up, but, Wahlberg's all down, and Topher Grace is about to bleed out. The idea is Mandolin basically has to now taxi the plane in. And Hassan, by the way, has been instantly hitting on her. Don't get me wrong, Michelle Dockery is a beautiful woman, but maybe we could wait. You just heard her voice. She has a nice voice. Don't get me wrong. But he ends up taxiing this stuff. She ends up eventually taxiing this in. And Baldberg ends up basically getting sent out the goddamn door because it busts through and all this stuff. And oh my God, gets busted through. And then gets run over by the fire truck. So, okay, that's the end of that. There's other stuff that was revealed throughout this whole thing. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's fine. It's good. So it seems like everything's good. Topher Grace is being taken in an ambulance, but then this weird guy suddenly shows up. This weird, paramedic. It's not actually a paramedic, and he's trying to kill Winston. But then she ends up shooting him with apparently the rest of the clip that she had in her gun. And then, oh no, the phone call was actually Coolidge or Moretti or somebody. Oh, you're going down, she basically says, and then that's it. And Winston's like, Topher Grace is like, what a day. Yeah, what a day. This movie felt like it lasted a day. Flight Risk was terrible. I mean, just terrible. Even by, bargain basement, just, silly entertainment standards, this was dog shit. This gets an F. This is bad. Oh, yes, and by the way, in the very beginning, this movie absolutely lost me. Topher Grace looks outside, and he's in the Alaskan wilderness, hiding out until Mandolin finds him. Opens, and there's this CGI moose that I swear, if you can't have an actual moose or even make it look halfway decent, have a superimposed moose cholak there. That's a deep cut that only 3 wrestling fans will get if they're watching by this point. That CGI moose, the instant they showed that, I go, that's where the movie started to lose me. My God, that was terrible. Terrible writing, paper-thin characters, rice paper-thin plot. It's just so bad. It gets an F. It's fucking rotten. Good job, January. You did it again. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland, and I'll see you soon.